Good morning. My name is Julian Torres, and today I'll be answering the question, how are the limitations of students' rights an illustration of the First Amendment in U.S. public schools? The claim I arrived to was due to the limitations on the First Amendment, the power and voice of the students are wrongfully oppressed. For my first source, I used the Lee versus Weisman Supreme Court case from the First Amendment Encyclopedia. And the case states that Robert Gutterman said a prayer before a middle school graduation ceremony, and in the audience was a teacher named Deswell Weisman, and she complained that he was not allowed to say a prayer before the ceremony. So she filed for an injunction against him, and he filed that he had his First Amendment rights to say that prayer. And when they went to court, Mr. Gutterman did lose due to a previous case called the Lemon Policy, which restricted any religious conformities. And as my visual, you could see that this was actual picture from 1992. And the solution I came up with was any speaker should be able to express any minor prayer, all in the well-being of the U.S. and foreign policies should be reviewed. I came to this solution because Mr. Gutterman, he only said the prayer to wish the kids a good luck, to help them realize that they're growing up, they're going into high school, and he only did it in the well-being of the U.S. Like he talked about the United States and what it could do. For the second source, I used the Hazelwood School District versus Kohlmeyer, again from the First Amendment Encyclopedia. And in this case, the Hazelwood School District removed articles from Kathy Kohlmeyer and her colleagues' student newspaper because they were not relevant to educational purposes. But they did talk about school pregnancies and teen pregnancies and diseases. She sued them because she felt like they were taking away something that would help students in the long run of life. And the conclusion I came up with was, as long as you keep your argument strictly to educational purposes, which should result in no conflicts. I say this because when they went to court, they did win their circuit case, but they lost their district and Supreme Court cases because they argued that this was not useful for an educational purpose and they needed to remove it. Now for my third source, I used a high school student named Caitlin Newtbar. She was denied her high school diploma after her valedictorian speech because she used the word hell. She used the word hell to describe when a teacher would ask her, "What do you want to be in the future?" She submitted her essay as in saying heck instead of hell at first, but when she chose to say hell in the emotional scene, in the emotional purpose, she only used it to describe how that moment really made her feel in depth. And the solution I came to was minor wordplay should not come into effect when talking about the emotions you feel towards a certain subject. I say this because she was not directing it towards the teachers. She was not saying that you were bothering them. She was nervous. She was emotional because she was about to graduate and she did not fully understand what the words could portray, but she was excited. Now, for my counterclaim, I said students at times take advantage of the correct way to portray an argument. And for this, I used the time, place, and manner source. And I used the source because it provides me with the knowledge of what students really are allowed to say, how their behaviors really change, and how it could affect what they do. And I used this visual because they're in front of the White House. They had to take their sign down because they were referencing the president right in front of his home. And for this, I used the source Morse versus Frederick because Joseph Frederick showed this sign, "Bong hits for Jesus," in the middle of his high school class, just to represent that he did have First Amendment rights, but they were not granting them correctly to him. And when they went to court, he did lose, and he did get suspended for referencing illegal drugs. And I said for my possible solution, students should be given guidelines to what will be allowed as correct representation of any protest wanting to be made. I do agree that he should not have referenced bong hits for Jesus because bringing an illegal substance just in an argument just does not help. Students' rights are being argued every day, and they should be allowed to express themselves more without any consequences, doing ceremonial speeches or school newspapers. They should be allowed to have more freedom. Thank you. What are your questions?
All right, 2 questions for you. First up, what information did you need before you began your research, and then how did that information shape your research?
What I needed was really these topics. So the bong hits for Jesus or the cases, they talked about the bigger picture. They're not just filing for the First Amendment. They're fighting for what they did in their school. With the school, they couldn't. The girl could not even say her graduational speech. And what was your second question? To that first question.
Just how did that shape your research?
It shaped because at first, I'll be honest, I did not think I had that correct bigger picture that I needed to complete my argument. But when I firmly find it, it finally helped me shape mine.
Okay. And the second question: if you had more time, what additional research would you have conducted?
I probably would have changed my conclusion a little bit after this case I said, because I could have tied back the audience more to what I was saying, and I finished off with just a little conclusion. I could have worked more, or I would have found maybe another Supreme Court case or another article that could help me.
All right, thank you.